20 years. That's how long Dave, my next guest, spent climbing the corporate ladder. Then one day he quit. He didn't have a new job. He didn't have any guarantees. He didn't have any certainty about what was next. And what followed was months of rejection, self-doubt, and trying to figure out what the future looked like. But hidden inside that uncertainty was an opportunity that neither of us could see at the time. Today, we're talking about what happens when the career you've built no longer fits the life you want and how to create the success you want on your own terms. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstack Career Podcast. I am with returning guest, Dave. Dave from North Carolina. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
It's been so much fun from the first time we met to the time we had a conversation on the podcast. I just pulled that up. It is episode 201 for anybody who wants to go back and listen to that, because you were kind of in the middle
hmm
of what we're going to end up talking about today. That was published on October 27th of 2025. So we'll do a little bit of intro, catch people up, so you can go back and watch the episode on YouTube or on listen to it on any podcast platform. But you don't have to unless you want to learn more about Dave and what he's all about. So catch us up, Dave. How what was going on that got you first thinking that, okay, this guy I found on TikTok, I gotta reach out to him.
Yeah. So I had been in a career that, I had done well. I had done well. I had been promoted up to the equivalent of a chief technology officer. And I had done well. I was able to build teams, pretty much climb the ladder of corporate to the highest point that I wanted to go. And the work became very unfulfilling. The hours kept getting worse, and they kept expanding, taking away from time with my family, taking away from time at home, taking away from mental health and also physical health. I was starting to wake up at 4 a.m. every night with an anxiety attack about the work that I was about to walk into. I was answering Teams messages up until 1 or 2 a.m. Sometimes. And weekends were not really weekends because my mind was so preoccupied with what I was going to walk into Monday at work or what had happened that Friday. And that's not really a great way of living. I had put on significant weight. I was very unhealthy. And, it was just a situation where I would go into work and would be under fire from the moment I stepped off the elevator. Things as simple as my laptop broke, or I can't open my email, which is like not something that I would really deal with normally, all the way up to, we're having a systems issue that we need to have fixed so that this thing can go out, right? So this treadmill was going to pretty much take me to an early grave, and so I opted to step down in March of 2025. I
And
was
when you
not
say
laid
step
off.
down, was that
I
step down or
resigned.
stepped out?
I stepped out. I
Right.
resigned. I had had enough. You know, I had I felt at times like I was running a bit of a kiddie daycare as because it was like, well, this person has this issue, this person has this issue, and it's just like, okay, how do I prioritize that, and which ones are like real versus need to be addressed right now?
Right. And this is not
Uh,
that long ago. This is 14 months ago.
this was 14 months ago, and I'm like
Yeah.
stepping back into my mindset back then while I'm recounting it, honestly, because I mean, I had spent 20 years in corporate working my way up to the role of the executive, and I did pretty well at that level, but it was definitely a case of just, I couldn't give everything that was needed to give after a certain point, and it was having a real detrimental impact on everybody around me, including myself. So I resigned. And in this economy, a lot of people thought that I was an idiot for doing that. I definitely had people on the way out wondering, like, what is he doing, like in this job market? And uh, I didn't care. I had reached the end of my rope. So I took some time off from the job search. I took some time off from working, and I basically tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I knew that the technology was undergoing a rapid change with AI. I knew that there was going to be significant layoffs ahead. I knew that it was going to turn for the worse very quickly once I started to see what the tools were capable of. And so I spent the time learning the tools. I spent the time increasing my skills. So I started to work on a few things. One was a book about the last 20 years of my work experience, self-published that. Then the next thing was working on a few mobile apps where I got to learn AI development tools like Claude, and started to publish mobile apps to the App Store. Um, from that point forward, it then became, okay, let me try to find a new job. And what I kept finding was that I was a bit of a fish out of water. I was looking at these roles that I had already like been promoted from a few years back, and I was just trying to find something for my family. And I kept getting to final rounds and I kept getting passed over because I didn't have industry experience, or they could hire someone cheaper overseas for that role, which had happened to me. Um, and it was just a situation where like I don't know what I'm going to do because 20 years of my life isn't allowing me to get another job. So that's really weird. And I previously have not had issues finding jobs, but this market is different. And so that led me down the path of, okay, well, I'm promoting and marketing this mobile app. I'm getting traction, but it's not paying the bills. Like it would have to scale to something massive for me to be able to cover bills. I'm living off savings. And, you know, what do I do? And I had my watch business that was running since 2018, still humming along, but it wasn't scaling. It wasn't, really, able to take on the household bills yet. And in the beginning
So
of, we
where
started
did the
work.
watch business, so you started in 2018, but how did that come about?
Yeah, so the watch business was something that was my kind of my creative outlet while I was, at work doing business cases and PowerPoints and presentations and doing all that stuff. It was my creative outlet for just designing and artwork a little bit and just seeing like from a business perspective how to run a business. And it was a really nice reciprocal relationship in that whatever I would learn doing LT as a business owner, I was able to apply to my job working as a product manager or a product executive and understanding inside and out how to make these things work. And so that allowed my career to also go up as LT was, gaining steam as well. And so that was a 10 to 20 hour side hustle for many years for me. It was something I work on in the evenings or during the weekends, and I just never quit. Uh, and sometimes I'll step away, take a break because I couldn't do it. I had too much going on at work. And other times, I just dive into it. So, it was 7 years of really, slowly putting the blocks in place.
So, and I remember we had conversations that it was just kind of there. It wasn't something that you were actively, especially when we started working together, you weren't really spending a lot of time and effort. You were focused more on the coding and on the app,
Hmm.
if I remember right. And so what, and the app is amazing. Is it still
Hmm.
available?
Yeah, you can still get it in the App Store. It's Stride Fuel. And then there's also a Bitcoin portfolio tracker app that I did as well.
Okay.
They're still out there. They still work.
Yeah. So Stride Fuel is uh, like a virtual AI.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's an AI fitness and nutrition and health coach
yeah.
in your pocket, and it can track steps. It can track Apple Health Kit integration, and then it has full-blown meal tracking, calorie tracking, everything. You can take photos of your food. It can calculate the macros and the micros for it, and I mean it's got everything in it. It's feature rich, as my developer friend said.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'm an Android person. I know it's not on the Google Play
no, it's
Store,
not on
but
Google. It's only on Apple,
but I got
unfortunately.
an iPhone. I got an iPhone so I could use your app.
Thank you. I thought it was pretty good, but the
So
marketplace will
plus
always tell you how good your idea is.
for the podcast, having it on Apple Podcasts, it's helpful to have an Apple product as well. So I
Yeah,
reluctantly plugged my nose and went in, got an Apple. So I know that's people are going to hate me for that. That's okay. You can
I'm
hate me.
sorry.
You can hate me for liking Android or Apple. But what shifted? Talk about how you decided because you were really focused on the next the next job,
Hmm.
and what got you thinking? Let me just put a little bit more effort into LT because you weren't going all in on LT on Low Train.
No, I
Um,
wasn't. It was always my side project, and it was almost self-running to a degree. You ran some ads, it made some money, and that covered the bills, and you got, a little bit every month to, keep or whatever. But really what the shift for me was I was interviewing for a couple corporate positions to go back into corporate, and I was overqualified for these roles that I was applying to, and that's just fact. Like they're looking for so many years of experience. I'd have like twice that. They're looking for someone who might have, experience building a team. I've built several. Like I managed P&Ls, I managed big budgets. Like so, I was taking these roles that they weren't there, and I was getting passed over. And I was interviewing people that hadn't yet accomplished what I had accomplished in corporate too. And they were like talking down to me on the interviews. Not that I was showing up cocky or like, arrogant or anything at all. I mean, I was trying to be myself and being very humble. I wouldn't even mention half the things sometimes that I had done in my career just because I didn't want to, seem like a fish out of water and like, oh, we can't bring him in. But I got passed over for several roles because of lack of industry experience. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really apply to in product management as much, especially at leadership level. And I just got fed up. I just got fed up. I'm like, why do I have to keep like trying to fit myself into some weird box that changes with every single interview? When I know I can do the job and I can do more than the job. I just was like, I just need a break. I just need a break from applying and going through this whole process because it was utterly ridiculous. Like I had some that were keeping me on as an interviewee in their interview process for like 5 months. Not even kidding. 5 months. They started the interview process in October and I didn't get told that I wasn't a fit until like February.
yeah. And
And
how many rounds did you go through on that one?
I went through like 5 rounds.
Yeah.
They kept putting more and more rounds in front of me. And at that point I was just like, enough's enough. Enough's enough. Like you guys are. Yeah, I don't know if this is true for everybody in this job market, but I think that they're almost being abusive to a degree because this is people's livelihood. This is their livings. They have families that depend on this, and they're just like, let's just meet again in a couple weeks. It's like that's not okay. And at that point, I just got burned out from the process. And I talked to my friend who's a recruiter, and he's like, this job market is terrible. Don't even bother. Like, just give it a year. And I'm like, okay, well, I noticed that LT, which had normally been relatively reliable, was starting to, slow down and suck wind a bit. And I'm like, well, that can't happen. So then I just went full bore into it, and it's taken on a life of its own this year. Thank you, thank God. And I'm having a lot more fun doing it, and I'm able to sleep at night. Like I've met a great community who I consider my friends, and it's just taken on an entirely different life that I could never have imagined what this was like until now.
Yeah. So a couple things that I love about your story is that it was first of all, you love what you're doing. That
Mhm.
is incredible. And so it's nice to know it's not just me who can exit corporate and then find something that they absolutely love. How does your wife feel about the this version of Dave compared to where you were a year and a half ago?
I think she's having fun again. I know I am, and I know like my son is closer than ever. Like just being present more, just being around, but also like we're making jokes and having fun again. And that was not something that was in our marriage for the last couple of years, just
Yeah.
because of how stressful I was all the time.
And I've seen videos where you have your son helping
Hmm.
with the packaging and the drops and things like that. So it's fun to include the
Yeah.
family, and and plus he gets to see um, not just a different version of dad, but he also gets to see what goes into a business.
Yeah, and he's still 5, so he doesn't fully. I mean, he's not able to comprehend a lot of it. But I give him a box to put his label on, put the labels in, help me, and then put it outside. And yeah, it's enough for him right now, and he does great. He loves to do it. But like, there's a saying that I read a long time ago, and it's kind of always has just stuck with me, and that was, you can't pass your job title down, but you can pass down a business. And
Oh yeah.
so. LT was formed out of that statement. That single statement is what formed LT, was that if I'm going to pass anything down, obviously it can't be what I've achieved. It has to be the legacy of the business and the family. So, from that root is where a lot of it's grown. So having him, where he can step in and like be a part of it has been one of the best things as well about this time.
Yeah. So a couple questions. One of the things we started working together, like we were trying to figure out. I know it was after I got to do math in my head, and this is so it was probably around September of last year. So you were out of work for a few months, and what what did that allow you to do, or what shifted? How did that change things for you to have somebody quote in it with you? Not that we were necessarily building LT or that we were doing anything. It was just we're just talking about stuff and how you can start moving closer towards what you wanted. But how did that have an impact on the direction that you decided to pursue?
Well, I think, there's a lot of truth to the saying perception is reality, right? And what you perceive is controlled by how you frame it. And I think what you were able to help me do is reframe a lot of different things so that I could perceive them from a different angle. So, for example, your story about planting seeds and how not all the crops will grow at the same time. And I know that that was one that we were kind of holding on to as I was getting passed over and over and over again. We just weren't sure what plant would actually grow. And thankfully, it was LT out of all the plants that I was planting. And so that would definitely held on. And then also the one reframe you said, which I think just still makes me laugh, honestly. But it was everything's going to work out. It might not be the way you want it to work out, but
Right.
something's going to work out, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's so true, is that, the world's not going to stop spinning just because, you don't want it to go a certain way. So I think keeping that mentality of, it's not going to end, there's always going to be something coming after that until you're in the ground, of course. And, just keep looking forward and really focus on what you can do with the opportunity given. So now I'd say the reframes have helped, and that has helped make me a little bit more optimistic. And not that I lacked optimism or I wasn't a positive person, but there was definitely like a moment where I just hit bottom. Like
Mm.
nothing was working. Like I didn't expect to get, a living off of a book sale, but there was that. The mobile apps were just like getting downloaded, but people weren't always signing up to subscribe. And even if they did, it would have required like 100x, user base in order to make enough to cover bills. And so like there was definitely an LT was, I didn't know what to do with LT either. And so it was definitely like a rock bottom moment of like I failed at every single thing now. Like what do I do now? And then I swear, like 2 weeks later, like the Watchdog community really started to lift up, and ever since it's just been this dream ride. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was those reframes I'd say were pretty powerful.
Well, and one of the things I first of all, I don't take on any client that I think I wouldn't want to work with. And but one of the things and I've told you this before, one of the things I've loved about working with you is that as we would talk about something, we would sometimes I would just throw out an idea. And I remember one time I think I asked, "What are you doing on TikTok?" And you were doing some Instagram ads, but you weren't doing anything on TikTok. What Talk about that? You're laughing.
I'm laughing because that really was the key moment there. For LT, like I had tried TikTok in the past. I was behind the camera, because I wanted to protect my identity a little bit for corporate, because you don't want to walk into leadership and everybody be like, "Hey, I just saw you go viral last night on TikTok." Like that would have been that would have been the end of my job. So being able to go from just trying to run ads on Instagram that were kind of faceless, just more about the watches, to being in front of the camera, just talking about what it's like to run this thing. That was such a radical shift for me. I was very uncomfortable doing it. But at that point, I was like, well, what am I losing here? I'm not, I'm not employed. So I need to do something. And I started in December with 394 followers on the TikTok account. And it's just grown
That was December,
exponentially.
5 months ago.
Yeah, 5 months ago.
Okay.
And like I said, I mean, it's really all the community. I
Sure.
consider these people my friends at this point, but they lifted me up. And it's just been tremendous because all I've been doing is just, talking to my phone, my camera, and just talking about all the stuff we're doing and getting to design some really fun watches and getting to interact with people. And I mean, how is that? That's just so much fun. I get to do that every day. Like that's pretty damn good trade.
So a couple things. I love this, and my poor wife. So when I was in my corporate job, I remember the day that I was driving home. I was working at FedEx. It was overnight. And so in the morning, I'm driving for driving home as she's getting ready to leave for work. And I'm just venting about what happened that night before. And it struck me during the conversation. This is the exact same conversation we had yesterday.
Yep.
Exact same.
Yep.
Different day, different players, different maybe, but it's the exact same thing. And I thought, I can't do
Mhm.
this anymore. And so that's what, kind of the start of where I decided I got to get out. One of the things that I just pulled up, this was mid-April, where you said you told me about a win that you had, which was just phenomenal. And I said, that's amazing. You said surreal. I took down my open to work banner for recruiters on LinkedIn and added
Mhm.
LT as a founder role, as a founder under work experience. And so I'm bragging to my wife. Guess what Dave's doing?
I told myself if LT can perform at the level it was at for 3 months straight, I would take down my open to work banner on LinkedIn. And now I'd never had the actual green banner, but I did have the private thing for recruiters. And after about 2 months, I was like, I think I've seen enough. I think I can forecast that I'm probably not going to go back.
Yeah.
And so I took it down, and it was freeing. It's definitely like it felt like I was closing a chapter. The first 20 years was climbing the corporate ladder and trying to become the best, whatever that is, leader and, whatever. And, now I was embarking on this entrepreneur journey full time. And, yeah, it's scary. It's terrifying. It's definitely leaves you more vulnerable. But with that said, it's been the most rewarding and the most fun I've had in years.
Yeah. And it's been fun to watch. And then you had uh there was something else. Let me see if this is something that Mhm. You sent me a text today that said,
Yeah,
I don't think I can go back to corporate now.
yeah, yeah. I It would be really hard because yeah, yeah. To go through like I mean every paycheck was every 2 weeks, right? And
Right.
I was coming to work and by 9 a.m. having a migraine every day. Like it was just a constant onslaught of like things breaking, people upset, IT issues, service issues, trying to deal with tickets, dealing with grumpy executives that weren't getting their way right that minute, and me already having communicated to them why they weren't going to get their way. It didn't matter. Uh, and yeah, I was just kind of like, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, you get your little check, and it's like, okay, that paid the bills. I'm not flying to Paris with this. Like, I'm not going to be able to go out and really do much with it aside from just keep the household,
Yeah.
running. So I just put my entire self through all of that for just to keep status quo. Like that, that kind of breaks you a little bit inside, right? Like,
Yeah.
I live this hellish existence. Well, to a degree. I mean, obviously, there's a lot worse than going to an office, right?
Sure.
Let's put it in perspective. But, just feeling like absolute crap every day for this thing that just keeps the status quo alive. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of wild.
Yeah. And one of the a phrase that I heard, and I don't remember where I heard it the other day, but it's it was a realization that for me, I was not making the decisions about my career. All my decisions for the first 30 years. I took a little bit longer than you did, but first 30 years of my career, it was all other people. Other people, it was
Mhm.
my boss who told me, "Oh, you're ready to promote, or you're not ready to promote." And I remember this in my first post-college job as well as my most recent one at FedEx. And that's fine. There are people who want somebody else to manage their career, and I don't have a problem with that. But there are people who get to a point like you and I did that it's just not fun. It's just
Hmm.
not fun to let my career, my growth opportunities, my destiny, if you want to be dramatic about it, maybe letting them control where I land, where I end up, what I do, and things like that. And some of it is even ingrained from childhood that I remember my dad telling me, you get a good job, get the stock options in the company car so that you can have a good career.
Hmm.
But which is again, that's fine, but not everybody is wanting to outsource some of those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, a lot of that just doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Like, I remember when I came into corporate in college, out of college, it was 2005 to date myself a bit. And I came into a corporation where people have been working there their entire career, like 30 plus years, right? And they were, I had one guy that was like 40 years working for the same company, which is just extraordinary. But that world doesn't exist anymore. It does not exist anymore. And so I was coming into that world ending in 2005. I think 2008 kind of punctuated that. And you had, you know, people talking to us as the millennials, Gen Y. They had no idea how to handle us, which I thought was hilarious. And they were telling us, "Oh, you're going to have like 18 jobs in your lifetime. You're not going to be sticking with the same company." I'm like, and this is the HR department telling us
Mhm.
this. And I thought, oh, I'll be different. I'm going to stick with this one company. And I lasted 7 years, but what I found out was that, whereas the previous generation, they might have had a pension, they might have had the car and all that stuff. My generation got, 401k and health insurance, which is still a good deal. I mean, it's stability and it's security, but what they didn't give you were like the pay increases. They weren't giving you the quality of life adjustments that would actually like make you feel like you're getting ahead and living the American dream. And then that's slowly started to recede as well after 2008. And then it became, okay, now my generation has to job hop in order to make more money. And then there was the whole grumbling about job hopping. But if you want to get a raise that was actually going to change your life or at least give you a good cushion, you had to job hop.
Yeah.
And then the economy became one where now it's just like, if you're in tech, you don't stick around very often because either your company will get rid of you with a layoff, which is becoming more and more common, or, you will become too expensive to be able to get a job anywhere else. So you're kind of locked in with golden handcuffs, as they called it. And it was just this weird transitional period in corporate America from like the old guard and into this new future, which is slowly starting to emerge of AI handling a lot of the lower level tasks that we would do. And it's going to be interesting to see where it winds up. But I gotta say, I'm very grateful for, where I'm placed now because that was staring at me, and the last thing I wanted to do was have to cut my team, and that was coming. So yeah,
Right.
this is it's an interesting shift since I joined.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun. It's been fun watching the uh, watching you take action. That's what the solution is. It's doing something like you said. It's uncomfortable. I think the word you used was terrifying, which
Yeah.
for me it was terrifying too. But I'm curious. Once you actually stepped into the most terrifying part, which might have been posting that first TikTok video or whatever it was. What was your experience? Was it as bad as you imagined or worse?
No, it wasn't as bad as I imagined because at the time I was such a small account that, the likelihood that anyone would even see it, right? I don't even remember what the views were on that video. Probably pretty high because TikTok likes to juice the numbers when you come back after a hiatus. But yeah, I wasn't expecting much from that. The fear I think became more of once people started to actually buy my watches off of TikTok. That's when the fear comes in because you're like, are they as good as I think they are? you start self-doubting, like, did
Right.
I actually build something that people are going to like or not? And then you start to seek that external validation a bit, and that what you have been working on was actually something that people enjoy and they like. And that's where some of the vulnerability creeps in, because like, let's say people didn't like them and they were like, these things are terrible. Well,
Which
then
you did have somebody who told you that.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, right. You're always going to have detractors, and you're always going to have people that are going to be out there just to, lob shots at you. That's part of the game. And that happens in corporate too. So you roll the punches. But definitely when this is the one thing that you're doing, right? You're like, oh boy, I don't have a plan B. Like if this doesn't work out, then well, back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, my intuition and the, iterations and just trying to learn as much as I could about the craft and starting to produce these things has worked out. But, there's a real risk to it too, of like, let's say that I was off in right field with my thinking and no one actually wanted these things, then that would have been a real problem.
Yeah. But having you talked about the perspective, having a perspective that can challenge. I wrote down a quote at an event I was at a month and a half ago that says, "Stop believing everything you think." And we have these mental programs that are designed to self-sabotage, doubt, worry, and finding. You talked about community. You talked about perspective shifts. Having that so that you can have maybe fresh eyes looking at what you're thinking, what you're trying to know whether or not it's valid. Because frankly, you can't trust yourself with some of that because you're going to talk yourself out of opportunities that are just right there. I have stories I can tell about that. I won't. But a couple things I just want to emphasize. Number one, it wasn't as bad as you thought.
Mm-mm.
And number two, having a different perspective, having some perspective shifts helpful. And community, you mentioned community, very valuable. Having a community of people who have confidence in you, trust in you, maybe believe that more is possible for you than what you see for yourself. I've watched as the Watch Talk community has brought you in, and it's just so fun to see that um, not only was I right, because it's not all about me. It should be, but it's not. But you were right about this idea that you started back in 2018. And now with some energy and focus and uh, time uh, put into it, it's become not just a side hustle, but it's become a main hustle.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a question was posed to me the other day in one of the replies that I thought was just excellent. And it was saying something effective like, what would have changed if you had started out with like a lot of investment into the brand, right? And because I had basically been piecing together what I could, a few $100 here, a few $100 there in the early days. And that was a really great question, because it would not have been obviously the same journey that I've been on in multiple ways. I think one of the major ones was like I hadn't grown yet to be able to actually deliver on what LT could be. So I don't know if I would have even been able to do the watches I'm doing now, or have you know, the community wasn't there either yet, because TikTok wasn't around back at the time. Like there's so many things that were just missing from the puzzle that help it become what it is now, and hopefully in the future. That just wouldn't have been there if, even if you had handed me all the money in the world. Like I would not have been able to do much with it at the time compared to now. So there's a lot of beauty in the journey as well, and in the struggle. And that's something that, maybe it didn't have to take 7 years, but was definitely a part of the story of just trying to make this thing work. And I wouldn't trade that for anything either.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's been an absolute uh energy boost for me to watch you as you have grown, as you've been embraced by the Watch Talk community, which um I had no idea. I had no idea it existed.
I didn't either. I mean, I'll be honest, I had no idea in December that this community existed. I saw the hashtag and I just started posting to it because I thought it sounded good. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have the research done on it, and I should have, and that's my own fault, but I'm really grateful that
Well,
they found me. And I want to say the other thing about the community is that, coming from corporate, I was pretty cynical. It's hard not to be. Everything is very sterilized. Everyone can't say what they really are thinking, or if they do, they have to put in a certain type of talk track, and it has to be PC and run by focus groups and all that nonsense, right? Just to make sure that you don't offend anybody or you don't get taken the wrong way. And I don't care how good you are at it, someone's going to take it the wrong way. It just doesn't matter.
right.
And you became very cynical of people in general because of this, because you couldn't say things, they couldn't say things, and you just had like this like truth that was just like in between you two, in the conversation that couldn't be spoken. And coming into the Watchdog community and seeing how everyone has been so encouraging, supportive, warm, friendly. They want to believe in you, and they do believe in you, and they want to lift you up, and you're a part of that whole thing. Uh, has really given me a renewed faith in humanity too, honestly. Because I mean, outside the office, I would come right home, be stressed out, and go to bed. So seeing, I think that people out there are this good has been also very helpful for me too, and also healing a bit. Because yeah, man, like you have to be someone else when you put on that suit. You have to be someone else when you step into that role. Because if you aren't, you aren't going to be protecting your own self and your own sanity to a degree. So you have to put on all these layers of armor just to get through the day and to deal with the mechanics of how it all functions. So being able to be myself in front of the camera and not have to worry about that stuff. And I mean, I'm sure I say something stupid every single day, but that never changes. But I think it's just allowed things to be a little bit more peaceful than before too.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to just throw two invitations out to anybody who's
Mhm.
watching or listening to the podcast. Number one, um, if you're ready to take that step into like what Dave did, doesn't necessarily have to be a side hustle or an entrepreneurial journey, but as the next step into something that you want to, where you don't want to dread going into work. Um, I would be happy to have a conversation and see if it's a fit if we were to work together. And then so that's one thing. And I've got a link in the show notes to go to my website and schedule a call, learn more about me. For you, LT, if people are interested in watches, quality watches, great looking watches, what's the best way for them to find you?
You're on TikTok. Lottery and Watches. I'm active every single day on here the most, but I also have email through the website and the website itself, lottrain.com. Yeah, reach out if you have any questions or if you just want to chat. Pretty open.
Yeah. I will and I'll put the link in both to your handle, your TikTok handle and the website in the show notes. Um, Dave, it's been great watching the growth from where we started
Yeah.
6, 8 months ago to where you are today. Thanks so much for coming back on and kind of giving us the update on what's been going on for the last 6 months.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate everything that you've done to help me reframe some things, gain additional perspective. And it's been a tremendous help also to keep my head above water during the early days of trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to be doing because this wasn't working. And
Right.
we found something. And
Yeah.
this has been, it's been a dream, man. It's been a dream.
It's been fun. It's been fun to watch, and everything works out. Not necessarily the way that you thought,
Right.
not necessarily the way
Exactly.
that I thought, but everything works out.
That's right.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. We will see everybody next week.
All right. Take care. Thank you again for having me on.
Yeah.